You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. Let your goals come from a place of encouragement, of feeling like you're good enough, of feeling like this will add something to your life, this will enhance your life, as opposed to, I'm not good enough as I am, so I need to do this to be better, to be worthy. You are always in control of where you're at with your goal setting, and you can set goals and you can change them at any time you want. Hi there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. I'm Felicia, and I am feeling super amazing right now because I just finished recording the meditation for this week. And this week, I shared a meditation. I called it a grounding meditation for a manifesting mindset. And I was really inspired to create something that would give the opportunity for the body to come into a place of relaxation, a meditation that could really activate the parasympathetic nervous system and really allow yourself to come down, especially before you're going to go and create. And why I wanted to do this right now is because it's that time of year where we are going to be swept away by a culture of, hey, new year, new you. It's time to set goals. It's time to do all of these things. You need to figure out your life. And there's good and bad with this, right? One, I'm sure you can hear a little bit of the sarcasm in my voice around new year, new you, because sometimes there's just so much external pressure. And I think all of us subconsciously can even fall into that a little bit where our shoulds come out, where it's like, oh, it's the new year, so I should go on a diet, or I should create my bucket list, or I should join a gym, or I should be doing a juice cleanse. There's so many things, especially in our culture of, self-care and stuff that people are going to take advantage of, wanting to exploit on that part of your heart that is so ready for a new beginning. So you have that kind of part where it's like stuff coming at you, which is, I guess, the part that I feel a little bit more hesitant with, because you can choose any of that. Like, if you want something, go for it. If you want something that I just mentioned kind of casually like that, go for it. But what I want for people is to feel like they can choose what they want for themselves for the year ahead from a place of deep inner desire. And with that inner desire comes the will and the commitment. And I think that there's a direct translation towards that. And it's interesting because, and this will kind of lead us a little bit into this week's astro segment, but last week on Monday, during the winter solstice, the sun moved into Capricorn. And Capricorn is this extremely ambitious zodiac sign. And it's kind of marked by its desire for accomplishment and excellence. And it's really a kind of sign that, it won't rest until it accomplishes. That's kind of what it defines as success. And so it's the first year that I've been thinking about how much of what we go through around New Year's is so inspired by Capricorn. And there's this beautiful energy to that, because you really do see people set amazing goals for themselves and do these amazing things. But often what happens is that after 2 or 3 weeks, it starts to fizzle out. And that's not the end of the world, right? So you started a new habit for a few weeks and you loved it so much that you threw yourself into it, and then life shifted and, you found your way into other things. One, that's totally okay. If that's happened to you before, it's happened to me so many times, and not just during New Year. I'm a really big believer of you can start anytime you want. So I go through this 20 times a year, starting things, and then they fizzle off or fade or they evolve. And there's a lesson each time, because when you try something out, you either learn, okay, actually, I am choosing to not do that anymore because it actually doesn't work for me. Or that pace that I'm going is not sustainable. So maybe you take a break for a while, but then you, instead of, for example, some people start going to yoga. They want to do yoga every single day. They're going to sign up at a studio, or they're going to buy an online membership, and they're going to do it every single day. And after a couple of weeks, they're like, wow, that's not sustainable. I actually have a lot of other stuff going on, or my body doesn't respond to that. It's too difficult. And so maybe they just stop going altogether. Or maybe they just start incorporating that a couple times a month into their practice, or once a week. And so there's nothing wrong with that either. You are always in control of where you're at with your goal setting, and you can set goals and you can change them at any time you want. I'm a really, really big believer in all of this. But it's interesting though that, Capricorn moves, it'll change on January 19th. It'll move into Aquarius. Much different kind of energy. And I think that that's so interesting. That's right around that 3-week mark into the new year that we start to see a lot of those changes. And so that, all that being said, with this Capricorn energy and what I've been really thinking about, being really mindful of what I want to kind of teach and encourage at this time of year, let's use this Capricorn energy to set authentic goals for the future, real intentions, and let's do it with that earth element kind of practicality. And let's use this drive and ambition that we're feeling right now to set really beautiful and honest long-term goals for ourselves. And instead of kind of being a little hasty with it and just wanting to throw your whole self into it, instead of it being like, these are the things that I'm going to start doing on Friday, instead maybe we start thinking about, okay, this is a list of things I want to incorporate into my 2021. So you don't have to necessarily start X on Friday, but you can start incorporating it maybe in a couple of weeks. Maybe you want to wait until the first new moon of January, right? When intention setting with the moon is really high. Maybe you want to wait until February because that's when your slow season is. Or maybe you want to wait for a couple of those things until your summer vacation, because that's when you'll have more mental space, right? So don't just claim right now that Friday has to be the start of all of this. Let's think of it as we have this huge timeline of an entire 365 days ahead of us, where we can work on all kinds of things that we want in our life. And just because we're not doing them every single day doesn't mean that we're not inviting them to be in our habits, in our lifestyle, in our consciousness, right? It's all there for us. One example that I think about often is how, like, let's say you want to make a food shift. So my sister, she's vegan, and she's always trying to tell me, like, you need to eat vegan, blah, blah, blah. And actually, right after I finished yoga teacher training, I spent about a year and a half being vegetarian / pescatarian. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. And I think there's so many amazing benefits to eating more plant-based. But what I like to think of it is that as, instead of saying on X date, I'm going to become a vegan, or I'm going to become a blank, or I'm going to, fill in the blank. Instead, see how often you can make daily or weekly choices that are that thing. So instead of saying you have to become this 100% of the time, maybe it becomes, when I meal plan, I'm going to see if there's a vegan version of that recipe, and I'm going to choose to make this meal vegan. And maybe you choose to make one more meal vegan. And then maybe you look back a year from now and you say, you know what, actually, instead of just being on autopilot, or instead of becoming a vegan, I was either a vegan or I was not a vegan this year, I ate 50% of my meals plant-based. And so you can start to see these shifts in your life, and you're not doing it with this all or nothing mindset that really can create such negative vibrations inside of us when we don't accomplish things, right? Like if we go back to this Capricorn, this success is accomplishment. When you don't accomplish things, you want to quit it, because then if you quit, then it's over and it's done with and you don't feel like a failure anymore. You feel like that's something you chose not to do. It's closed behind you. But then what about your desire to want those things? So instead of giving yourself this, ticket for failure, you're actually setting yourself up for choices that you can make at any given time that it feels right and doable to meet those goals that you set out and these experiences that you want to have. I don't know. I get really, on my, high horse about this, or like up on my soapbox, because I think so much of what a lot of us have been taught about approaching ourselves and the things that we want to accomplish, we just haven't really been taught how to intention set in a very good or mindful way. And like I said, we so often go into this black or white place. And, I feel that a lot myself. Here's a little story for you. Dave and I just closed on our refinance this morning. We've been working over the past month to refinance our house. And we did that because we are working towards Dave leaving Apple. And we knew that refinancing our house would be the best thing for us, especially while interest rates are low and we're at the beginning of our loan and things like that. And so we had some help going through this process, and we actually closed on the loan this morning. And I am the person who, looks over all of the documents, that signs into the thing, that double checks the names and the spelling and gets all of the information together and all of that stuff. And it was just kind of a whirlwind, because last week I had kind of taken the week off to kind of be in as much of a vacation mode as possible. But both Dave and I had been kind of a little bit like frustrated with not having a lot of communication around when the close date was going to be, because we couldn't make other decisions and move forward until we knew when that date was going to be. And so we actually received the news that we'd be closing today on Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve, was a day that had a lot going on. There was a lot going on Christmas Eve, Christmas, then the weekend. And so I did as much as I could. I read the things that was like, hey, you need to review the closing disclosure. You need to sign this. You need to create this account, blah, blah, blah. So I did all of those things, but then I still tried to be present with Christmas mode and like being present for this holiday and being in the place that I was feeling from slowing down, like really trying to be in that place that I created. So then yesterday I kind of start to move back into Felicia work mode, which you guys would just laugh if you saw the notes app on my phone, because I have like Saturday and then a big checklist. And then I start creating one for Monday, like things I can't do until Monday. And then I have Saturday's list becomes Sunday's list. And then it's just like all of this stuff going on. And I started feeling really nervous about this closing, because I'm like, I've never refinanced a house before. I know that I've closed on a house. I've been through that. So I don't know why I was feeling so scared, but I felt like I was like, there's something that I'm missing. And I swear, you guys, I reread the emails over and over. I even woke up early today so that I could prepare and do all this stuff. Well, I had this long list of things I needed to get done this morning. So like I printed out the closing disclosure, got our driver's licenses ready, like everything I thought I needed. And then I had do a bunch of other things for the business. And yeah, just a bunch of other things. So I am hopping out of the shower like right before our closing at 10, and I'm like, okay, let's get ready, let's log in. And I look down on my phone, and ever since the election, I do not get calls from unknown numbers. I was just getting so many, and then Apple set up this this thing where it's like it can silence calls from unknown numbers. And I really like that, even though it's also a little questionable with like running a business or living a life and people trying to get a hold of you. So anyway, I look down and I have this text message, and it's from our notary, and she's like, hey, I'm here 15 minutes early. Like, let me know if you guys are ready. And of course I didn't see it. So I'm like, oh, we got to log in. We got to do this. And I'm going to sound so stupid in about 3 seconds. But so, and you can tell I'm still working through this, but I'm working through it right now. And I'm going to let it go. So I'm like, hey, yeah, like we just logged in. Like, do we see you via video? Like, what is this like? And she's like, no, but I'm here. And I'm like, I like look out the window and I'm like, oh my God, like there's a person physically here. And I'm like, oh, of course there's a person actually here. Like a notary, like an actual physical person has to be there to do this. We're doing it at our house. Like, oh my God. So then I'm like running outside. I'm like throwing the dog in the bedroom. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like not even able to think about like with COVID. I'm like, do we do it outside? Do we do it in the garage? Like, and then also as I'm like looking at this email, it's like in this like red print, which I swear you guys, I read this a million times. I must have just been processing it differently. Like it had words that were saying one thing, but like I just wasn't reading it correctly. And it was like, hey, 2 hours before this, you should go in and sign all of the documents ahead of time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we could have already done that. I instantly just felt like such a failure. And so of course she comes in and I'm like, do you want us to wear a mask? Like I'm so sorry. Like I didn't read it correctly. Like I'm welcome. Like, so we had her, come into our house and like our computers are upstairs in the office. So like I invite her upstairs and I'm just like thinking, I'm like, this is not COVID safe. Like she's outside of our bubble. Like we should probably be doing this like outside, but I am an idiot who didn't read things correctly, who doesn't know what they're doing. And afterwards, after she left, I just felt like such a failure. I felt like such a failure because I'm like, all I had to do was read one stupid email. And now I'm me. This is my Virgo rising coming out, like so judgmental and so hypercritical. I am like those people who don't read the instructions. And I don't want to be one of those people because I'm not that person. Like I really care about following directions and I like to do things the right way. And of course, Dave is like looking at me like I'm a crazy person because I'm about ready to cry about all of this. And he's like, you did the best you could. Like you're handling a lot of stuff. You're creating stuff for our business. You're creating stuff for your own business. You're trying to figure out this new adventure. You're trying to, get us ready for Christmas. You got us through the holidays. Like, and Dave has been sick with this cold. It's like, we know it's not COVID because he gets tested through his work, but he has just been up coughing. And so like we haven't been sleeping well over the past 4 days because literally he'll spend like 3 or 4 hour stretches at night awake, and then that disturbs me. And like even on my my Aura ring, which kind of gives me my sleep score, it's just been like pitiful over the past 4 days. And so he's like, you've been taking care of me while I'm sick, and you've been taking care of everything for the house. And he's like, you just need to not be so hard on yourself. Like, was that ideal to have somebody come into our house? No. Like, did you ask her if she was okay with this? Like, yeah, she was. Everything is fine. Like, we closed. It's all good. And I am trying to breathe into that because there's still that perfectionistic thing inside of me that's like, no, you have to be perfect. And that's what I mean is like, I really do understand like how black or white we can be. It's like, we are this or we are not that. And it's like, no, you can't just accept the fact that like there's been a lot going on and you don't do this very often. So just have a little grace for yourself. Right. And so that's what I want. That's what I know I need more for myself. And that's what I want for so many of you. If that resonates with you, like, give yourself grace as you move into this new year. Always be aware, like, am I in a place where I'm being black or white about this? And is there a gray area here? And just let your goals come from a place of encouragement, of feeling like you're good enough, of feeling like this will add something to your life, this will enhance your life, as opposed to, I'm not good enough as I am, so I need to do this to be better, to be worthy. That does not work. That is crazy thinking. It is something that we all do, but we know better, right? We definitely know better. And so it's so good to have that reminder, especially this time of year. So I want to quickly touch on a couple more things that are happening astrologically right now, just with, I guess I threw in a little bit of thing about Capricorn, which was all good, but I do want to share a little bit about this full moon that's coming up right now. So tomorrow and Wednesday, we are having our last full moon of the year in Cancer. And this is so interesting because we started this year, first full moon in Cancer on January 10th. And it was a lunar eclipse. It had been a series of eclipses happening along the Capricorn Cancer axis that had been happening for, I think, like 6 or 7 cycles. So lots of that kind of energy kicked off this year. Now, moon in Cancer, a couple things to know about moon in Cancer. So the moon actually rules Cancer. And Cancer is the sign that is kind of known for its emotionalness. It's very receptive, very kind of like mother archetype-y, a place of reception, a place of quiet, a place of ebb and flow, a place of like inner strength. It's also very much associated with home and the feeling of like being homesick, nostalgia, things like that. And because Cancer is ruled by the moon, it is very comfortable in this place. It's so interesting to me that we started off 2020 for full moon in Cancer, like home is like the word that comes to mind. And then we have spent so much of this year at home. Probably more than any year that we could consciously think, at least most of us, at home, living in our homes, being home, being in this place is maybe a little bit more introverted, experiencing all of this, having to go through this level of true introspection and evaluating our lives. And then we close out this year on a Cancer full moon. Now, just a little bit more context. It doesn't always happen this way. So this year was kind of interesting. We had 13 full moons and 13 new moons. And both of our new moons happened in Cancer as well this summer. So new moon in Cancer on, I believe it was June 21st, and then the second one happened on June 20th. So that's pretty wild, right? So like 2 new moons Cancer, 2 full moons Cancer, all in 2020. Next year, there's 12 full moons and 12 new moons. Each get 1 sign, and that's it. So interesting. And I feel as though this one is kind of like, all right, you guys, here you are, final full moon of the year. It is time to release. It is time that it is safe to feel and even reflect on all of the things that have happened this year, all of the feelings, maybe even the emotions that have come up from being home. Maybe the feeling of loss, maybe the feeling of growth, maybe the feeling of self-transformation and everything that has come with it. It is okay for you to feel those things and to let go right now. It is okay to release, especially if you really feel like you've completed something. It is okay to release it. And this full moon is going to be a beautiful time to do so. There's some other like good alignments happening right now. But again, like knowing that we're sitting here with this full moon, literally the days leading into this new year, it really has me less focused on intention for new year and more like let go before the new year. So if that resonates with you, wonderful. If you're feeling really excited for 2021 and you've already got your list going, do that too. Like, it's not like This is not like reverse magic. Like, you're not going to undo anything. But just like I always say, being aware of what's happening with the moon, I just find so transformational. And I find it very, very helpful for me personally. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that very interesting context with you guys. And so, yeah, I think that'll do it for this week's Astro segment. All right, let's take a quick break, and then I've got something else to chat with you guys about. All right, welcome back. So I've been wanting to share a little bit of a personal story with you guys. This time of year, right around New Year's, always brings up, I shouldn't say always, for the past 5 years has brought up this memory for me. And since it's been 5 years since this happened, I thought, you know what, it's time to share this on the podcast. So 2015 was a very interesting year in my life. I had been in a interesting relationship that didn't work out, and that had been for about 4 years, and then it all happened kind of very quickly where I'd finally broken up with that person. Like, the relationship was complete. That's a good way to put it. And I had found this person that I had known at work, and I fell in love with him, and we were it's funny because actually I went and pulled out all of these journals, which I'll share more about shortly. But this morning, before knowing that I was going to share back on this time in my life, I was like, I want to just pull out these journals. And I found the journal of like a month after my first date with this man. And I just was gushing about how much I loved him and how much I saw the future with him. And I am telling you guys, at that point, I genuinely believed that he was the one and that it was it. It felt so right on very many levels of my life. And that was very reinforced by external, the external. Like, I had a lot of people at work who would constantly reaffirm, like, oh my gosh, you two are so great together. You guys are so cute together, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, it seemed to be confirmed everywhere. And to be honest, I was, let's see here, I'm 32 now. So I would have been 28 that year. And so at 28, I was already feeling behind in what I wanted to do with my life. When I was much, much younger, like in my early 20s, I thought 26 is going to be the age I get married, and then I'm going to start having kids, and that's going to be my life. And my 20s have they definitely showed me that I was wrong about where I thought my life was going to go, and not in a bad way. I mean, I am very grateful that my life has gone the way that it has gone. But when I was 28, I really genuinely thought, like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the answer to all of those prayers. Like, finally, I'm going to be able to get my life started, and this is going to just be this fairy tale romance and whatnot. And it was New Year's Eve, 2015. We had a date set up, me and this guy, and we were getting ready to bring in the new year together, and we ordered Chinese food, and we went back to his place, and we're having this really amazing night together. And throughout the night, like, everything seemed perfect. And suddenly we were sitting on the couch, and he just looked at me and he was like, I can't do this anymore. And I thought, what? Like, what? And now keep in mind, I had been in a lot of relationships where fighting was normal, where conflict was normal. I was used to speaking my mind and bumping up against obstacles and you know, like, you think things aren't working or whatever, and you figure it out, right? That was all very normal to me. So when he was like, this isn't working for me, I was like, whoa, like, I never thought when he said that it was the end. I just thought, like, oh my God, like, we need to work on this or something. Like, this is like, I mean, I was definitely caught off guard. But, you know, of course I was absolutely triggered, and I don't remember all of the details now of the back and forth of the conversation, but I just remember being like, what does this mean? Like, are you going to like take me home? Like, why? Like, I had so many questions running inside of me. And we were actually getting ready to, and over the, like, I think it was in that, like 2 months later, we were talking about, moving in together. And so we had this whole plan, like literally, like there was a lot on the table. And so we got back in his car and he drove me home, and he was quiet most of the way, and he dropped me off, and that was it. Like, didn't speak to me, didn't return my calls, didn't answer my text messages. Like, that was it for him. And it was so painful on so many levels. I remember going back into work that day. I think it was the day after, and I had called my friend Katie and told her what happened. She was probably like the closest like couple friend to us, and I mean, she couldn't even believe it. She was really sweet. She had her husband, he also worked with me, like go to the Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory and get me some chocolate and brought it to me. Oh, we'll never forget that. But it was like everything that I knew collapsed in that moment. And if you guys are familiar with tarot cards at all, there's a card in the major arcana called the Tower card. And it's essentially this picture of this tower where lightning has struck it and people are jumping out of windows and falling down. And it's basically like, it can symbolize an external event happening that changes everything. And that is the moment in my life that I always think of when I see the Tower card, because that's how it felt. It felt like a lightning strike. It felt like a sudden death. And that might sound a little dramatic because obviously it wasn't a death and it could have been much more worse. But for me, it was. And it took me a very, very long time to heal from that relationship being over. And I think the way that it ended and not having very much closure did not help. But what was interesting is that, so that happened on, I guess, the night of December 31st. And I started my yoga teacher training on January 3rd. So a couple days later. And man, what a time in my life to have already been known. I had already known I was already signed up for yoga teacher training. But when I signed up, I didn't think of it as, oh, this is going to help me through a breakup. That happened more unexpectedly. And I was very, very grateful to have yoga teacher training at that time in my life, because I was able to throw my entire self into the training. I didn't miss one class. I didn't miss 1 hour. I was there for every single part of it. And I remember showing up for this yoga teacher training just absolutely, I'm trying to find the right word. I was very open because I needed healing, but I was very hurt. And I was not myself. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And so there was, I think 14 of us, 14 people in my yoga teacher training. And we were all sitting in this big circle, kind of, going around saying what brought us there. And then we did this beautiful opening ceremony where we were able to set an intention. And I remember thinking, like, Lord, like, I just want to be able to get through this. But more than that, there was this small, tiny voice inside of me that was like, right now I'm in survival mode, emotionally, and then physically, like I was in survival mode. If I can get through this, then my intention is not only to survive this, but to shift into a place where I am thriving. And I thought, what if yoga teacher training can be that thing that allows me to learn how to thrive in my life? I realize now, looking back on it, that I had no idea just how much that would grow and change. Because at that point, I was about a year or so into running my own business. 2015 was also my very first year full-time, not full-time running my business because I was also working at this other job, but it was my first full year of running my business part-time. And so I didn't know then in 2016 that I would have those goals of wanting to expand full-time or anything like that. 2016 ended up being just such a wild year in my life. And it's interesting because you guys know that last week I was talking about Saturn moving into Aquarius. And some people, like my mom and my sister, for one, both of them happen to have Saturn in Aquarius in their natal chart. And when Saturn comes back to the sign that it was in when you were born, that's called your Saturn return. And so for me, my Saturn was in Sagittarius when I was born. And when I was 28, right during this time, I was going through my Saturn return, which is kind of a couple year span of your life where you are finding out from life experience if you are living the life that you're supposed to be living. It's kind of like that reality check kind of moment. And over the course of 2016, oh my gosh, did my life change. My life changed in many different ways. I became a yoga teacher. I finally figured out to heal myself from that relationship. It did. I'll tell you guys why. I thought that just being in yoga teacher training would help me to heal my heart, and yoga teacher training took about 5-ish months, 5.5 months. And it didn't finish healing during that time. It started to, but it didn't finish. It took me a really long time to grieve that loss. But also in 2016, I found a great accountant, which I desperately needed for my business because that stuff was taking a lot out of me. And she is also a business coach. So she became my business coach, which allowed me to really start growing my business in a very conscious way, and ultimately led me to deciding that following New Year's so from 2016 into 2017, that is when I set my intention that I wanted to go full time. And so a lot happened in the space of that year. I also fell in love with Dave in 2016, and that was the first year of our relationship. And I found the journal from that too. That one I wrote, the one I found was the day after Dave and I kind of, as I said in my journal, took our relationship from being work married into more than that. And, I will always be so fond of how I guess of Dave and I's love story because, in stark contrast, the previous relationship that I mentioned was this very fierce, all-consuming, maybe even like a little bit of naivety kind of love. There was kind of just like almost maybe more like the kind of love that I thought that love needed to be, the kind of love that came from movies and things like that I always thought was the right kind of love. But Dave and I, we really bonded because of the grief that we were both going through in our lives, and that being able to be so authentic about our grief and to being able to not have that other person, I don't know, kind of tell you what you should be feeling. So like I mentioned, this all happened at work. Dave and I met at work. And so when I went through this breakup, it was a very public breakup inside my work environment because we both worked there. And I would have people that would come up to me and say, like, oh, you are too pretty for him, or you are blah, blah, blah for him, or whatever. Like, they'd say people say stupid things to make you feel better. And Dave said that somebody would say that to me, and I would, turn back to my computer, and that he would just notice. Dave's an amazing observer. He would just notice how dejected that would make me feel. That it would, he's like, a look would come over on your face, and that just made you feel like such shit. It really did. And he was the first person that like said to me, is like, I don't see that at all. I know how much you loved him, and I know how much pain you're in. And just to be seen in that way was so powerful for me. It was the first person just to see me where I was at. And I needed that. And I think also being in yoga teacher training during that time made me realize how valuable that is, to have somebody who sees you and sees you for who you are, outside of, how you perform or what you say or what your story is, all of that. And like I said, Dave and I's love story was much slower because we were both healing. We were both on our own journey. We were two individuals, very much on our own individual paths, and a very important friendship started first. And our relationship was truly built on our friendship and on our ability to meet each other and see each other and hear each other as we were, without expectations. And then it was from that place where slowly, after I started to really start to heal my heart, and my heart started to heal and I started to feel a little bit better, that then I was able to start to see Dave differently. And here we are, 5 years after all of that started, and making such huge leaps and growth and transformation. And even after all of that, even right here today, I truly feel like I am still right at the beginning. I still have so many similar emotions to as I felt that first day of yoga teacher training, that feeling of like, I have so much I want to do. I have so much I want to learn. I have so much that I don't know that I wish I knew right now. And, it goes back to that intention, that very first intention set during yoga teacher training about thriving. And I've been thinking a lot about that recently, as this year that I feel 2020 is so marked by being in survival mode. And what is the difference between surviving and thriving? That's kind of, I guess, become a little bit trendy lately. So I really started thinking about this weekend, is what does it feel like to survive, and what does it feel like to thrive? And I feel like survival mode is, for me, marked by nothing being planned. Everything catches you off guard. Someone asks you a question and your mind just goes blank because your heart is racing all the time. You're moving out of instinct and out of fear instead of out of intention. And the other huge marker of living in survival mode is stress, grief, anxiety. When you are stressed, you're not able to ask for help. You're scared. Your SNS, your sympathetic nervous system, is turned on, activated. It is literally blocking your ability to relax because it is trying to help you survive. And these long lasting periods of stress, worrying about money, working too much, not being able to rest or have a break, or having too much in your mind that you have to accomplish, the weight of the world on your shoulders. All of this leads to being in perpetual fight or flight mode. And that kind of readjusts your inner barometer so that your body gets so used to being there that even when you start to come down, you're almost trying to get your levels back up to where you're used to being, because the thermometer is trying to be where it's used to being. And so, it's not as simple as just, okay, I'm not going to survive anymore, I'm going to thrive. It's like, you have to be realistic about that, because when you're in survival mode, you have to be honest about the things that are keeping you there, or that have delivered you to that moment. So you can't just ignore the stress. You can't just force yourself to not honor those things that are really happening for you. But I think there are some things you can do to practice coming out of survival mode, and practicing coming out of survival mode will help you practice starting to move towards thriving, which will lead you to hopefully have greater and greater periods where you are thriving. And so the thing about thriving is, I think it's a little bit different for each of us. And I heard somebody kind of split it into two categories. So you have thriving in one way, which is more of like this longevity approach, that you're living this life that is full of beautiful longevity and you're moving towards that. Or there's the other kind of thriving, which is a life a little bit more marked by adventure, like living to really have excitement in your life, and you're taking advantage of things as opposed to trying to live a long time. Maybe you get both. But for me, what I think of as thriving is having a daily relaxation response. When you are living from that place of being in that relaxation response, you are able to be grounded. So you are making decisions from a place of peace, of calm. Your literal system, so instead of that sympathetic nervous system being in your fight or flight going, you're actually in a parasympathetic nervous system response. So you're peaceful, you're restful, you're clear, you're focused, you're brave, you feel like you can take a leap, and you can do so with all of your faculties with you, right? You have time for things, you're spacious, you're able to live with intention. To me, that is what thriving is. And I think maybe you'll have your own definition. Maybe you have to sit down as you consider this yourself. What does thriving look like for you, and what does surviving look like to you? And which one are you living in most often? And as you think about thriving in 2021, what does that look like, and what is that going to need from you? Right? So if you've got a lot of stuff going on, or you're going to be sleep deprived, or you're stressed out, or you've got, a tall charge that you're facing, what would it look like to start each day with a moment for your parasympathetic nervous system to get on board? Even if you do it while you're still in bed, alarm goes off, now a 5-minute timer sets for you to just breathe, just to focus on your breath, just to stay in that very kind of unguarded, peaceful place where you can start to picture yourself moving through the day, feeling confident, feeling rooted, feeling grounded, making decisions from this place that you are rooted, that you are aware, that you are intentional, right? It could be like that. It could be cutting some stuff that has just been dragging you down and taking it off your list. It could be releasing people. It could be releasing or setting boundaries around certain relationships that have really caused you a lot of stress, or work or whatnot. There's so many things that get in the way of our feeling like we can thrive. And I'm venturing to say that some of those things, there's not a lot we can do about it. Some of it is external stuff, some tower kind of stuff in our life. But we often have way more control and power than we give ourselves. And a lot of how we reclaim the power is in how we choose to look at our situation. So maybe as you start to move towards 2021, you start thinking about even like what words you don't have space for anymore. Like one of the things that I've been thinking about is how often I talk about fear. and how often I feel afraid, and how I am ready to increase the amount of faith in my life and start talking more about how much faith I have in things instead of using that other word, that F word. And, maybe another word that I've been thinking about is how often I say stress, right? If I'm constantly saying, I am so stressed, this is so stressful, look at this stressful thing I have to do, then I'm constantly reaffirming in my head, stress, 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 survival, not thriving, stressed. And I can honestly say I feel that probably obviously more often than I want to. And so instead, I've got this. I'm working through my to-do list. I enjoy what I'm doing and really trying to work on my mindset. So anyway, you guys, that is where I'm at right now. That is a bit from within. I hope that story might have found some resonance with you. And maybe you have your own things that this time of year brings up for you. And of course, if you have something like that, you're welcome to share it with me. So as we close today's episode, I want to do a card drawing. I have the Affirmators Love and Relationships deck with me. And I just want to have this card just kind of be a reminder, something relevant that comes up for this full moon, and kind of maybe symbolizing this year that we had at this bridge between now and the year ahead. So let's take a couple deep breaths and see which card we get. Oh boy, okay. Surrender. Hear ye, hear ye. You are hereby being called to unclench your grip on any old thought patterns that are getting in your way. Surrender any ideas that make you feel like a victim in your circumstance or which make your dream relationship seem like an impossibility. The mayor of reinvention has just arrived and has made the following decree. Limiting beliefs about yourself and your life are forthwith officially and indubitably declared for the birds. Wow. And it says bonus card on the bottom. I've never pulled that card before, and it's just exactly how it's supposed to be. Surrender is such a beautiful word. Especially right now, especially for a full moon, especially for the completion of a year. I want to say thank you so much for tuning in for this podcast. This is the last episode of 2020. So the last episode of this year, which is so crazy because this is the year that we started this podcast, and I'm proud of this. If you've been listening and you really connect with this, if there's anyone in your life that you want to share this with, please know that I would appreciate you spreading the word of this around. If you've been listening to this on Apple or Spotify or whatnot, you can get ad-free versions of this podcast on my Patreon page. I post the exact file with no ads. So if you want to listen to it that way, you can join our Patreon page, patreon.com/A Bit From Within, and that's Patreon spelled Patreon.com. And that's a place to support creators like me. And with that, you can join with the Mind Level, which is all of our audio recordings, so weekly meditations and the weekly podcast, ad-free, as well as all of our full moon guides, lunar guides, all of the written material. So the Mind Level to me was more about like things coming from the mind. So the audio and word stuff. And then if you love yoga, I also teach a yoga class every week, and that is released with the next level up, which is the $12 a month, the body level. So you can pair it all together. I do have more exciting things coming in 2021 that I can't wait to share and unveil with each of you guys. And I'm just so grateful. And please know that just because I'm not putting out a ton of intention stuff right now doesn't mean that might not be coming here, but I I'm really thinking that I want to line that up a little bit more closely with the lunar cycles. So what you'll hear me reaffirming over this next week ahead is that it's okay to let go. It's okay to reflect. It is okay to release. It is okay to feel this spotlight on everything you've learned and enter that place of finality as you start to shift your mindset and your life into this new beginning. All right, you guys, thank you so much. If there's anything that you've been needing or would like to hear me talk about in the future, please let me know. And until next time.